On today's episode of Monetize the Mic, I am so excited to be joined by some of our incredible clients at Interview Connections who have just been blowing up. Their success with podcast guesting is straight out of the gate, and it's so inspiring. And they also have incredible sales expertise to share with you. And this is something that comes up all the time, right? People are getting visibility on podcasts, and then it's like, how do you close those sales, right? How do you get those high ticket sales? And y'all are brilliant at that. So we have Isaac and Natasha Ho, a power couple here. Welcome to Monetize the Mic.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, we are so excited to have you. So I first just want you guys to introduce yourself to our audience because you work together, you each have your own businesses. So just kind of explain what you do and how you work and who you help.
Yep. So I'm Isaac Ho. I'm the husband in the power couple, as you call it. And I have multiple businesses, but really what I help entrepreneurs do is create and sell high ticket packages that not only bring more revenue into their business, but help them with retention. So really helping clients not only have to go get new business all the time and how to close those, but also how to keep business. So that way they can actually get the full amount that's on the agreement. So that's something that I help people with. And my wife, Natasha.
Hi, I help high achieving professionals and entrepreneurs to be able to create more joy and fun in their businesses and their lives. That's what's really important to me, is being able to do all of the wonderful things that Isaac teaches people also how to do, but do it in a way that feels really, really good. So that's what I help people do.
Amazing. Well, your expertise together is magic, right? Because we're going to close those high ticket sales. We're going to keep those high ticket clients and experience lots of joy. So that's perfect. So talk about why you decided to invest in working with us, invest in getting interviewed on podcasts as a guest expert. What was sort of the tipping point to making the investment and working with us?
Yeah, it was actually my wife's idea. So I'll let you share that story.
Yeah, so my background is in PR and marketing. So I knew the value of visibility. And for my own self, my own business, I was doing a lot of outreach to podcasts, but I knew that in order for us to grow and grow our combined business quickly, that we had to be able to focus on the things that would bring revenue the quickest, in terms of the things that only we could do. It was like, I know I can reach out to podcasts and book us on podcasts, but where I need to spend my time and my energy in order to grow the business is not there. There's other things that I can do that only I can do. And so I decided to invest there because I knew that we could build Isaac's visibility for our business, and we would be able to build his authority in that way as well, and be able to continuously drive leads without us having to do all of the heavy lifting in order to make that happen. And that once we got him in front of podcast hosts and guests or listeners, that they would be attracted to the message that he had. And he's a powerful closer. So all we had to do was get some really, really great leads in front of him in order for us to be able to get the result.
Awesome. And so Isaac, share a little bit about the first few months starting to record podcast interviews. If I'm not mistaken, it's really before interviews have gone live that you've seen sales from this strategy. So share a little bit about what's been happening.
Yeah. So for me, and I haven't had a large media background. So Natasha's used to interviewing people and prepping them for TV and doing those kinds of tasks. For me, it was really like, okay, what do I know about sales going into this conversation? So one, do I know enough and understand enough about this person to come and have a really good, healthy conversation with them? And the thing I was really curious about is, why do people start podcasts? It's not like it's a small amount of work. It's like you have to get people to come on, a lot of these bookings, some of these bookings I'd see Saturday afternoon. So people are giving up their Saturday afternoons. So it's like, what are you trying to get out of your podcast? And that's a lot of the conversations that I had on the back end and being curious about that. And sometimes the person has a podcast, they have an offer, they make me an offer. And then sometimes they'll actually say, well, the thing that you help people with is actually what I really need for my company. It's what I need for myself, what I need for my team. And so just being in that conversation, really coming from the mindset of curiosity, that's really how I was able to, get on calls and have those calls that were then interviews turn into calls afterwards that led to business or potential business.
I love that you ask the hosts, why did you start your podcast? Like that curiosity and that question is so brilliant. You shared this with our Facebook group community when Britt interviewed you, and I was like, that's so smart, because we teach our clients like get to know the host, nurture your relationship. But just what do you explain there? I just want everyone to take that in. And I think if everyone implements just that tip alone, they'll see a huge difference in their results. Why is that? So I just want to kind of pick your sales brain a little bit. Why does showing curiosity in someone else motivate them to want to work with you? I mean, it seems like an obvious question, but I feel like there's a lot there.
Yeah. The biggest piece of that is that a lot of times I think whenever we're networking, like if you've done traditional networking, it's like, okay, we're all in a room and we all have something to sell. We all signed up for this because we want to sell something. And, this business group can say, hey, everyone's here to help each other. But in the back of your mind, it's like, wait, am I going to get sold or is this person going to sell me? And one of the ways you need to take that apart is by actually accessing someone's subconscious mind. So, consciously, we all want to be of service and show up to a networking event or some kind of meeting, and we want to be really helpful. But a lot of us don't realize subconsciously how we actually shoot ourselves in the foot. And the primary way to actually get through the subconscious mind, and the only way to really talk to the subconscious, is to ask questions. So many times when I come into a meeting, what I'll do is I'll actually think about the kind of questions that I really want to ask and the kind of things that I really want to know. And one of the reasons why it works so well is because just by asking the question, you're actually taking that person out of their conscious mind that's like, okay, I've got this agenda, to actually asking themselves like, yeah, why did I start this podcast? And I was on a call with the host, and she actually said like, the podcast is the thing I'm really excited about, and the other parts of my business are not what I'm excited about. So she was looking for a coach to actually help her move into doing more of what she was excited about. Now, if I just came on, and I was like, hey, let's talk about your business, well, that conversation would never have come up. And so by asking these questions, you actually see what's really going on with people and they bring things up. So, if I can share, Jessica, like the sale that Natasha made really came from me asking that person what they wanted to get out of the podcast, and they're then asking their co-host, like, where are you at in the podcast? Like, what do you want to be doing? And it turns out Natasha had some ways that she could serve the person. So I said, my wife would have some ideas for you. And so they set up a call, and that lady ended up signing up with Natasha. But really what I did was I just went in and I was really curious about it. And I just wanted to be of service from you tell me what you're trying to create and I can give you some ideas, or I can direct you to the person. And that really is the right energy. And there's things that Natasha did really well on the sales call as well, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about, but from getting into a conversation where somebody actually wants to come to a follow-up call and they actually want to talk about what you offer, it's really, really important that you know the kind of questions to ask.
That's so smart. And I love that story. So now, Natasha, let's kind of go on this journey. So Isaac had this conversation, asked the host. It was revealed that, oh, I'm really excited about the podcast. I'm not really excited about other aspects of my business. Enter Natasha. That's exactly how you help people. So give us some of like what actually happened, in the green room chat at the end of the episode. Isaac, did you offer to, connect the host with Natasha? Like, give us kind of the timeline.
Yeah. So this specific person, the host, they were new to co-hosting the podcast. So right away, I was just curious about like, oh, I didn't know there was a co-host. Is this the first time you co-hosted? And then talking to her, she actually said, like, the thing that I'm really actually passionate about is like making music, but also doing video production. And so it's like, okay, there's not a clear intention of how business is being created with this podcast currently. So then I was curious if that was also a struggle in her video production business. And she said it was. And I said, well, one of the things my wife has done is managed to create a 6-figure business out of cooking, which is an intangible art for some people. Like, how do you put a price on cooking? And I said, my wife helps clients take something that is a little bit less tangible and turn it into something that's profitable. And she was really interested in that. So I then texted both of them and I said, I'm happy to set up a call. And then they got on a call. And then that's where Natasha can tell you, what she did on the call.
Yeah, go ahead, Natasha. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So once we got into the conversation, it was really for me, digging deep into what it was that she really wanted to create. And again, it's like the curiosity carried over from that first conversation into the sales conversation, and showing up there to get really, really clear on what it was she wanted to create, why that was important to her. And in order for us to figure out, like, how do we put some urgency behind you solving this problem? Otherwise, it can be that you're just going to continue waiting and thinking that you'll do it soon and not actually taking any action around it to get the support you need to make it happen. And so she said she wanted to transition out of working in a corporate environment into starting her video editing business. And she'd been doing it on the side, but hadn't committed to doing it 100%. The other thing was that she was really, really undercharging for her services. And so we identified in that conversation that the thing that was keeping her from achieving the goal she wanted was really around her own sense of worth. And so it was a mindset issue that's sitting at the crux of this, of her not being willing to charge what she's worth for her services, and her not being willing to leave the comfort of her corporate career because she was not willing to invest in saying yes to herself. And again, a worth issue. So us having that conversation and identifying that was really the opportunity in question for her was, is this an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you believe in yourself by investing in coaching to start the business that you really, really want to have, and have the lifestyle that you want to have of, being able to bring in six figures, being able to own your schedule, all of those things that entrepreneurs want to do, and why we get into this in the first place. And so having that conversation, she was able to get present to, like, yes, this is what I want to do, and this is the path to being able to do it. And that her having that breakthrough around the worth issue that came up for her made her decide to sign up.
That's incredible. You both are so amazing. Like your energy, your presence, your curiosity, and just your commitment to serve everyone that you're speaking with. It really creates this abundance, just abundant energy, and I love it. So yeah, I was just so excited. We're going to do more of these types of podcast episodes on our show going into the new year, because I really want to tell the stories exactly how people are monetizing the mic. And I just love that y'all have the sales expertise as well. I think that we will just have to do a whole episode on your expertise around sales and retention, because I want to keep this episode really focused on this specific story. I want people to like take it and go implement it, right? But will you guys come back for a full episode on, the retention and sales and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Would it be helpful if maybe we share a few things from a teaching standpoint that you did on that call?
Yes.
So a few things that like you heard Natasha say was, one, she was curious when she got on the call, but two, she actually really identified what a person really, really wanted. And a lot of times when you ask people what they want, they answer based off what they think they can create, not based off what they actually want.
Yeah, she literally gave me the number and she said, "Oh, I'd like to make maybe $40,000 or $50,000. I was like, okay, so now you've told me what you think you can have. Now I want you to tell me what you actually want.
Why is that so hard for people to say what they want?
It's really comes from a place. If anyone has any worthiness issues, which I think it's safe to say a lot of people do, as a sales coach, a lot of what we end up working through is mindset issues. But if there's any, past trauma, if there's any trauma around money, then it's really difficult to actually say, I want this, because all the trauma that you associate with it. So when you ask someone that question, so let's say you had a high ticket offer and you said, well, the program is 30,000. And if they said, yeah, what I really want is to create 30,000. Well, how do you sell that high ticket offer based off the false information that now says that they're barely going to break even if they buy your offer? So step one, you have to actually establish, like, what do they actually want? And then it has to make sense based off your offer. So that was really important in the first step that she did right, because she'd have gone through that sales conversation, addressed self-worth, done all these other things. But if she hadn't addressed the first step correctly, person's like, oh, wow, it's a $25,000 program and I'm only going to make 30,000.
Right.
So that becomes a no play right from the start. The second thing that she did really, really well is that she actually addressed that person's reason for they had a behavior pattern. And it was that they actually said, it's like, well, I haven't really committed. And so digging in, like what's underneath the commitment? Well, my own worthiness issues. That was one, but it was also like urgency. So, in sales, people only buy because it's urgent. So if you can't establish urgency in a sales conversation, and this is something we could do a whole teaching on easily, but if you can't establish urgency, then the person doesn't buy. And one of the hardest things for people to do in a sales conversation is actually to establish urgency. So, when you're getting on these podcasts, and let's say you're talking to the person on the podcast, you're talking to people about opportunities, and you're about to pitch a program, never pitch a program if you don't have urgency built, because the person's going to have to go away and think about it. And they're going to say, well, let me follow up with you at the end of January. Right. You ever have that happen before?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Because there's no urgency.
Right.
And so you can't make a sale if there's no urgency. So that was another thing that Natasha addressed. Like, well, you haven't addressed this prior. So like, what's going to make it urgent now? Her actually asking that. And the third thing that's really important that she did was she actually had this person realize that her way of being around her self-worth was not serving her. So that way, when it came up later, she said, well, would this be the same self-worth issue that we talked about earlier? And when we looked at it, was that serving you? So then the person has a conscious decision to actually look at, do I want to continue being this way, doing this thing that's getting me this result? Or do I want to actually make a change here? And this is my opportunity to make a change. But you actually have to address all of those things before you even present a price. That's super, super important. Because once you bring money into it, the person's going to get triggered. And so they start bringing up all their money stuff. So all these things that happen before you even talk about program or pricing are super key to actually closing a high ticket program. And so from a teaching standpoint, when you go out to offer a high ticket program, you want to make sure, one, you're actually talking and having the right conversation about what they want to create. You also need to make sure that you're actually addressing what that person's reason for actually moving forward is. And it has to actually be, fairly painful, because they'll likely continue their same pattern if it's not. And then the third thing that they really have to do is they have to recognize their pattern and realize it's not serving them. They have to see that from a place that's not triggered, so they can make a conscious decision. And if you do those three things, then what it allows you to do is have a real conversation with someone where you can serve them, instead of them continuing to go through, let's just say, for example, creating a podcast, but not actually doing what you really, really love, and not actually spending your time monetizing what you do and love, but staying maybe in a business that you don't like, and so when we talk about sales, what we really talk about is helping people make change. That's the way that I always teach my clients to think about it. It's the way I think about it, because, in short, how I got into retention and high ticket sales is I actually own a gym as well.
Wow.
So one of my businesses I own a boutique health studio. And so people sign up for a program, but if you stop 3 months into a fitness program, one, it doesn't serve the gym, it doesn't serve the trainers, but two, nobody gets healthy and they don't maintain the health. So my question was, like, how do I actually train people, condition people to stay in through a program to get the transformation, and what's going to actually take them out of it? And that's really why, like, I have a big soft spot for retention, because people actually can't get the transformation if they don't stay in. And so addressing those things at the beginning of the conversation are really important. So when they start to struggle, they come to you for support instead of thinking that you're part of the problem.
Wow. Anything that you want to add, Natasha?
That was pretty masterfully summarized.
Yes. No, I agree. That was so good. So your retention work, it's really around, is it like a lot of mindset stuff of like what causes clients to want to back out or leave? Can you give us a little preview?
Yeah. So there's three big things that I find really hurt retention. And the first one is realistic expectations. Like, people come in with all this uninformed optimism when they sign up for a program. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've got an email, I've got a video call. And it's like, well, I'm 3 weeks in and I really haven't moved. And there's no conversation that addresses that. There's no expectations conversation. There's not even like so for example, it's like if someone wanted to come and work out and I said, okay, this is how you lose 10 pounds, right? Your first 10 pounds, like that should be well laid out. Now, if I just come in and I'm exercising and now like I'm missing time with my family, I'm not eating the foods I like anymore, I don't see my kids go to bed because when I get off work, I go to the gym. It's like, how long am I going to stay in that process? Because no one's even had a conversation about what it takes to actually be successful. So whether it's, let's say if it's sales, like podcast sales, then it's like, what does it take to get your first 5 figures in podcast sales? Like, how do you have to have those conversations and what's the roadmap? So then they can actually match each step to the action they're taking. And if they're not taking the action, they know why they're not getting the result. So the expectation is super important. The second thing that I see that's really key is we have to also look at like, where are people at? Like you can have a great business and a great business model. You bring the wrong people on, it's always going to be a headache. So, let's say like Natasha, brought this person on. They said like, I'm really committed to keeping my prices low, and I'm really committed to only making 30,000. That wouldn't be an ideal client for her, because even at the best scenario win-win, that person is not really going to get an ROI. So it's like looking at what someone actually offers, making sure they could ROI on the program. If they can't, are they willing to change their program offering? That's really important. So that's a lot of what I do, is actually change someone's program, help them create something they actually want to sell instead of what they think someone will actually buy, which is where a lot of people create program offerings from. So that's the second thing. Like, if they're coming in and they're going, yeah, my product is like $200 to $1,000. Well, man, how many sales are they going to have to make to ROI? And then they actually get demotivated, and they don't realize the problem is the program, the offer is wrong.
Right.
And then the third thing you could say would be mindset, right?
Yeah.
It's like the way that they're thinking about the way they're showing up. We talked a lot about subconsciously when people come to interviews, they've already got this focused on me kind of thing. Or I've even seen people go like, and actually I had this experience with someone who runs a podcast. They were like, oh my gosh, like I could totally see you doing work for my company, da, 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 da. And then we got to the meeting and the conversation was completely different than what they had said. And that's a natural subconscious thing that someone who's a high I, which is a selling type, does. They actually overpromise a lot. And then they're like, wow, that person got really upset and was disappointed in the meeting, right? Because they overpromised and they don't even realize they do it. So a lot of what gets people is actually the subconscious layers of selling they don't understand. And so when they come to meetings, understanding how they naturally show up, so they don't create disappointment in the meeting, or they don't create conflict, or they don't procrastinate the sales process because they're afraid of something or some kind of old trauma. So those are, you could say, some of the things inside mindset too. But, if you can, one, make sure someone has a clear path and they have an actual program offering that makes sense, where they're at, and then you're actually able to coach them through these steps that it takes to sell, and make sure they're not just showing up to, let's say, 50 podcasts with the exact same way of being that's creating no sales. Like, those are the kind of things that really help people with retention.
Amazing. That was so helpful. So can you all share, where can our listeners connect with you, learn about working with you, get your support?
Natasha built the website, so I'll let her say it.
You can find us on isaaccoaching.com, ISAAC. I know a lot of people have trouble with the name Isaac. They always put the wrong number of A's, 2 A's. ISAACHO coaching.com. And then you can also find us on Facebook and LinkedIn, Isaac Ho Trainer. I think it's both.
From Facebook. Yeah. Trainer, like sales trainer, TRAINER, after Isaac Ho Trainer for Facebook.
Amazing.
And that's the main places I think you can find us.
Yeah, go get in touch. I know we have some clients, at least one client that has learned how to sell from you, Isaac, and she's crushing it. So I can attest that you guys are incredible. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, how you're monetizing the mic, and all of your brilliance. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.